Long ago, in a peaceful village around the edge of a thick green forest, the people had a special way of remembering their past. They did not write their history in books, nor carve it on stones. Instead, they passed it down through the drums. These drums were not just instruments of music. They were voices of the ancestors, living storytellers made from sacred Iroquois wood and stretched with the skin of wild antelopes. Each drum had its own sound, its own message, its own spirit. When struck, they echoed across the hills, speaking in rhythms that every villager understood. The elders said, "To know the drum is to know the soul of our people." Every event in the village had a drum beat. When a baby was born, the drums danced joyfully in high tones. When someone died, they wept in slow, heavy beats. At festivals, they sang with wild laughter. And during times of danger, they roared like a storm warning the people to unite. In this village lived a boy named Kofi, no older than 12. He was small for his age, with bright, observant eyes and a heart full of wonder. He didn't talk much, but he listened, really listened. While other children played in the fields or chased chickens in the yard, Kofi sat quietly under the baobab tree, just watching the drummers. His father, Kwabena the drummer, had once been the best in the village. His rhythms were so powerful that the wind seemed to carry them to the mountains. When Kwabena played, even the birds stopped to listen. But one cold Harmattan season, Kwabena fell ill and passed away. The village mourned, and so did Kofi. All that remained of his father was a beautifully carved talking drum, now silent and hanging on the wall of their small mud house. The leather had dried, the cords were worn. To the village it was just an old memory, but to Kofi it was something sacred, his father's voice trapped in silence. The elders believed that the drum would only speak again when touched by hands truly ready to understand it. Hands that could feel the stories behind each beat, not just play the sound. Many tried, none succeeded. Kofi never dared to play it. Not yet. But each night, before going to sleep, he would gently place his fingers on its skin, close his eyes, and imagine the rhythm his father once played, the rhythm that could make hearts tremble, feet dance, and souls remember. And so he waited and listened, for in his heart he knew the drum was not silent, it was simply waiting to be heard again. After the death of his father, Kofi became even more quiet, but in his silence, he began to hear more than most. Every morning before the village walk, he would sit near the center of the square where the drum circle was kept. The great tree beside it stood tall and wide, its roots tangled like stories passed down over generations. From there, he would watch the elders prepare their drums, each one treated like a living being, oil tuned and whispered to before playing. The most respected among the drummers was Nana Kojo, the old master drummer with a beard like tangled roots and hands that moved like water. He didn't speak often, but when he did, people listened. When he played, even the animals at the edge of the forest paused. Kofi sat and studied him. How Nana Kojo tilted the drum just so, how he closed his eyes before the first strike, how every rhythm had a shape, a pattern, and a purpose. One day, Kofi approached quietly and sat behind Nana Kojo's stool. He didn't ask to play, he just watched for hours. Days passed, weeks. Most of the other children were busy with chores or games, but Kofi returned again and again. He began to tap on his knees when alone. He tapped with sticks on the ground, listening for patterns, not just the fast ones, but the spaces in between, the rest that gave rhythm meaning. Eventually, Nana Kojo turned to him and said, "You do not speak much." Kofi nodded. "I'm listening." The old man gave a slow smile. "Good. Talking with drums begins with listening." He handed Kofi a small wooden drum, simple, not sacred, but enough for practice. He didn't teach him with words. He played and expected Kofi to listen, repeat, and understand. Over time, Kofi learned more than just sound. He learned language through rhythm, how a series of beats could mean come home, how a pattern could tell someone danger is near, how a slow rising rhythm was used only when welcoming an honored guest. And he learned about emotion, how joy was sharp and high, how mourning was slow and deep, how love pulsed like a steady heartbeat. The other children began to notice Kofi's hands, not wild and loud like theirs, but steady and clear. His playing didn't just make people move, it made them feel. Still, he never touched his father's drum. Not yet. He believed in what the elders said. The talking drum is not just played, it chooses who speaks to it. And though he longed to play it, he knew it was not time. Instead, he listened every day to the wind, the birds, the river, the elders, the rhythm of the world, and most of all to the drums because he knew when the moment came, he wouldn't need to find the will. The drum would already know what to say. The dry season had come again. The Harmattan winds blew dust across the village paths, drying leaves and cracking the earth. Even the river that sang behind the forest had grown quiet and thin, its water sluggish beneath the heat. One night, as the village lay under the cloak of stars, a strange scent drifted to the air smoke. At first it was faint, like a whisper. Then it grew stronger. By the time the alarm was raised, flames were already dancing on the roof of the palm wine shed near the square. The fire, greedy and wild, leapt from roof to roof, licking the sky with red tongues. Sparks flew into the air like angry fireflies. People screamed, pots clattered, mothers grabbed their children, men ran for buckets, shouting over one another. Chaos gripped the village like a fever. The chief called for calm, but no one could hear him over the roar of the flames. Even Nana Kojo, standing in the drum circle, tried to send out a beat to gather the people, but the panic was louder than the rhythm. His old arms trembled, and the message was lost in the noise. In the corner of the square, Coffee stood frozen. His heart pounded. The smoke stung his eyes. His ears filled with fear and confusion. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. Then he turned and looked toward his house, toward the talking drum that hung silently on the wall. It was as if the drum called to him not with sound, but with memory. He remembered his father's rhythm. He remembered the call to gather, the heartbeat of unity. He remembered listening. He ran. Inside the house, the smoke was creeping through the windows. Kofi untied the drum from the wall, wrapped the strap across his chest, and stepped back into the firelit night. He walked, not to the drum circle, but to the very center of the square, where everyone could see him. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and let his hands begin. A steady, commanding rhythm, deep and clear. The call of gathering, the same beat his father had once played when danger threatened. The villagers froze, buckets paused mid-air, feet stopped running. The panic broke like a shell. People turned, they listened, they heard not just the sound, but the message behind it. Kofi's hands moved faster now. The drum spoke louder. The message was unmistakable. Come together, do not scatter, act as one. And then he changed the rhythm. His fingers tapped out a new pattern. It was the ancient song of water, the rhythm the village played when praying for rain, a rhythm tied to hope, to action, to saving what could still be saved. The message was clear: bring water, fight, don't give up. And the people did. Men and women, elders and children, all moved as one. Buckets were lifted, chains were formed from the well to the flames, cloth was soaked and tossed onto burning roofs. The fire hissed and steamed, slowly pushed back by the will of the people. By dawn, the flames were gone. Smoke curled like tired spirits into the sky. And at the center of the village, standing barefoot in the ash, Kofi was still drumming, tears streaking his face, his father's rhythm flowing through him like a river. Finally released, the village was saved, and the talking drum had spoken again. As the golden sun broke over the horizon, the village lay wrapped in a hush, not of fear but of awe. Charred palm leaves littered the ground. Smoke still curled from blackened beams, and the square smelled of wet ash and burnt wood. But the fire had been defeated, and more importantly, no lives had been lost. And in the center of the square stood Kofi, his feet bare, his chest rising and falling, the talking drum still strapped to his side. He was not playing anymore, but the memory of his rhythm lingered in the air like a song that had entered everyone's soul and refused to leave. People began to gather around him, quietly, gently. Children who had once teased him for being too quiet, elders who had dismissed him as just a boy, mothers, fathers, and farmers. They said nothing at first. They just looked. Nana Kojo stepped forward through the crowd. He had witnessed many things in his long life: floods, famine, celebration, and sorrow. But never had he seen the talking drum come alive like that, not since the days of Kwabena, Kofi's father. He said nothing at first. He only approached the boy and looked into his eyes. Kofi looked back, unsure of what he had done or if he had done it right. His hands still tingled from the force of the drumming, and his knees trembled from exhaustion. Then Nana Kojo slowly and deliberately did something unexpected. He removed the drum from around his own waist, the master's drum, carved with symbols of wisdom and age, and placed it gently at Kofi's feet. Then he bowed. Kofi, he said, his voice soft but firm, the drum has spoken through you, and you have spoken through it. Gasps echoed through the crowd. A bow from the master drummer was more than praise, it was anointing. It meant that Kofi was no longer just a quiet boy with a famous father. He had earned his own place. He was now a drummer of the people. The elder stepped forward next. One placed a hand on Kofi's shoulder and said, "You listened when we could not. You acted when others froze. The talking drum answered you because you knew not just how to play but how to feel." The chief nodded in agreement. "From now on, Kofi, you will speak at the gatherings. You will drum the stories of our people. You will carry the heartbeat of this village." A tear slid down Kofi's cheek, not of sadness, but of belonging, of pride, of remembering his father's hands guiding his, of rhythms whispered in the wind, finally finding their way home. And so, on that morning, the village did not declare a festival or hold a feast. Instead, they sat quietly in the square and listened as Kofi lifted his father's drum once more and played a soft, grateful rhythm. It was not a song of fire or fear or warning. It was a song of new beginnings. And though the flames had tried to silence their home, the drum had spoken louder. From that day forward, the village walked to a different rhythm, one carried in the hands of the boy who had once only listened. Kofi had become more than a drummer. He had become the voice of his people, not with speeches or scrolls, but with beats that carried meaning deeper than words could reach. Each morning, before the first cock crowed, he would sit beneath the same baobab tree where he once watched Nana Kojo. Now, children sat beside him, watching with wide eyes, listening to the patterns of his fingers, studying the spaces between the beats as carefully as the beats themselves. And he taught them just as he had been taught, not with instruction, but with silence and rhythm. He would say, "First, you listen, not to the drum, but to the world. The wind has a rhythm, the rain tells stories, even your own heartbeat speaks if you stay still long enough." During naming ceremonies, Coffee played the rhythm of life, fresh and playful. During weddings, he played the rhythm of love, soft, pulsing, rising like a breeze. And when elders passed on, he played the rhythm of farewell, slow and deep, guiding their spirits home. But there was more. Kofi didn't just drum for events, he drummed the stories of the people. The time the river overflowed and brought fish to the doorsteps. The tale of the stubborn goat who outran a leopard. The great storm that split the Iroko tree in two and the girl who planted its seed again. Each beat he played became a line in the living book of the village, a book that didn't fade with time because it lived in hearts and bodies, in feet that danced and hands that clapped, in tears and laughter and silence. And the talking drum, once silent, was now always warm from use. It was no longer just his father's, it was his, and it spoke in new ways, carrying forward the legacy while creating something entirely his own. As Kofi grew older, people from other villages came to hear him play. Some asked him, "Where did you learn to drum like that?" And he would smile and reply, "I didn't just learn the drum. I listened to what the drum say." And when he finally passed the talking drum on to a new child, quiet and curious like he once was, he whispered, "Do not rush. Let the drum speak first. When it's ready, it will tell you what to say.